Statements by ministries. The Minister of Research, Innovation and Science.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Allahu Akbar. It is my pleasure, Mr. Speaker, to rise in this legislature today and extend my warm greetings to the Baha'i community of Canada. Mr. Speaker, the Baha'i community is celebrating the 200th anniversary of the birth of Baha'u'llah, the prophet and the founder of Baha'i faith. Baha'u'llah was born on October 22, 1817, in Tehran, Iran. Mr. Speaker, I had the pleasure of attending two events in York region celebrating the bicentenary of Baha'u'llah's birth. These celebrations have been going on around the world. There are now more than 7 million Baha'is around the world who revere Baha'u'llah as one of history's most recent messengers from God. This anniversary serves as a wonderful opportunity to pay tribute to the Baha'i community. The fact that this bicentenary is being celebrated globally is a reminder of the transformative impact of Baha'u'llah's teachings on the lives of individuals, families, communities, neighborhoods, and across Canada and worldwide. The Baha'is have been persecuted in Iran, the birthplace of the Baha'i faith. But this has not stopped the community from spreading globally and establishing communities in almost 200 countries, with thousands of localities in this country, our wonderful country, Canada alone. In Canada, the Baha'is can be found in every province and territory from all walks of life and the cultural backgrounds, from indigenous peoples to multi-generational immigrants to Canada. Mr. Speaker, as I have said many times, I feel very privileged living in a province where there are a number of distinct religions and the cultural communities who live and work harmony with one another. The success of our province is rooted in the diversity of our people. We speak many languages, respect all faiths, and have ties to every part of the world. Our multiculturalism is among our greatest assets and has given us an enriched worldwide. The Baha'i community of Canada is representative of this rich diversity and have helped to make this province and our country, Canada, even stronger. The Baha'i faith, Mr. Speaker, is a perfect example of the wonderful teachings and values about humanity, equality, and diversity that add to the social fabric of Ontario. Humanity is common identity that we share, is the benevolence that pushes us to help others and to treat them with kindness and respect. Equality is the belief that we are all the same and deserving of the same treatment, opportunity, and wealth, equal among genders, races, cultures, and nationalities. Diversity is the ideal that it is good for us all to be different, that we are all unique in our own way, and we should be celebrated for that. These values, Mr. Speaker, mirrors across Ontario's, that of this and of this legislature. Each member of this legislature, Mr. Speaker, wakes up every morning hoping that in some way they will be able to improve the lives of Ontarians. That's why I choose to rise in this legislature today and deliver this statement on the Baha'i faith and mark this occasion, because I see their values represented here every day within this legislature and out of this legislature. I see these values in our community centers, in our neighborhoods, in our middle schools, in our higher learning institutions and the research institutions. I see them in our small businesses, and I see them in the faces of those sitting around this chamber right now. Keeping these values in mind, I would now like to turn to the history of the Baha'i faiths so that the members of this legislature can spread these stories and the values into their own communities. The Baha'i faith, Mr. Speaker, came into being in 1844, when a merchant living in Shiraz, Iran, began to teach a new interpretation of Shia Islam. It was long before this merchant, known as Sayyid Ali Muhammad, proclaimed himself the Bab, roughly translated the gate, and garnered a large following. The Islamic clergy immediately recognized this new interpretation as a threat and acted quickly. The followers of the Bab were persecuted horribly, while conflicts between the Islamic clergy and the followers rose into military skirmishes. The Bab was eventually captured, imprisoned, and executed in 1850. And the early followers of the Bab took the title of Baha'u'llah, and conflict between the Baha'is and the clergy continued, as more and more followers were drawn to the faith. Baha'u'llah became the leader whose teachings included his vision for a peaceful, prosperous, and united society. In 1853, Baha'u'llah was placed in a notorious prison in Tehran known as Siyah-Chal, or meaning black hole, where he indicated that he received a vision of the Maid of Heaven, who stated he was the one anticipated by the Bab. Later, he was freed and expelled to Baghdad under the rule of the Ottoman Empire. As his influence continued to grow, upon the pressure from the clergy and the request from the Iranian king, Baha'u'llah was sent to exile, far from the Iranian borders, first to Constantinople, Istanbul today, and then to Adrianople, and later to a prison in Akka, Palestine, at that time Israel today. In 1863, while leaving Baghdad, Baha'u'llah declared his claim to a divine mission to his family and to his followers. Mr. Speaker, over time, the officials of Akka prison began to treat Baha'u'llah more hospitably. Though he was still an official prisoner of the state, he was allowed to live in the remainder of his life in a relative comfort. Perhaps they came to realize that Baha'u'llah was truly a man of peace and deserved to be treated with the same respect he used to treat others. Mr. Speaker, Baha'u'llah died in 1892, still in prison in Akka. His resting place today is Bahji, and the Baha'is turn in that direction for prayer each day. Mr. Speaker, unfortunately, the persecution of Baha'is occurs in Iran, where the Baha'i faith was founded. Members of the Baha'i community in Iran have been subjected to unwarranted arrests, false imprisonments, beatings, torture, executions, confiscation and destruction of property, denial of employment, denial of government benefits, denial of civil rights and liberties, and denial of access to education. On this very occasion, Mr. Speaker, I urge the Iranian government to lift all those unjust restrictions imposed on the Baha'is and allow them to enjoy freedom of worship, among other civil rights. Thank you. Mr. Speaker, and my colleagues, members of this legislature, please join me in wishing the Baha'i community a memorable and a meaningful bicentenary celebration and for much ongoing fulfillment and success. Please bring these stories and teachings back to your own community so that you may enhance the lives of other Ontarians. So thank you, Mr. Speaker. Merci beaucoup, Miigwech. Again, Allahu Akbar. Thank you.
Thank you.